The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
This is News Talk.
All right, you're welcome along to Thursdays Off the Ball. Nathan with you until 10 o'clock this evening, and we've got a packed 3 hours ahead. So what the hell is going on with Novak Djokovic? We're going to get the latest from Luke Jensen just after 8 o'clock on what has been the craziest 48 hours in Australian Open in Novak Djokovic's life, and it ain't over yet. On the football show, Julian Dao is very much a League of Ireland legend, but he's also a two-time African Cup of Nations winner with Cameroon, and he's going to join us on the football show to talk about his career with Cameroon and also to look ahead to the African Cup of Nations, which is taking place in Cameroon and getting underway on Sunday. Also between 8 and 9, we're going to hear from Kevin McLaughlin, a key man for Mayo over the last decade, and also, of course, a key man for his club, Knockmore, who were in the Connacht football final against Porrick Pierces on Sunday. And it is Thursday, which means we will be hearing from John Giles at 7:30. There is a lot to talk about with all that's going on with Romelu Lukaku over the last week, and also with the never-ending leaks that are coming out of Manchester United. 53106 is the text number, at Off the Ball, if you want to get in touch with us on social media. Richie McCormack, good evening and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Nathan.
We're still saying that, I think. Are we?
Yeah, we're allowed. I was discussing this last night with Joe. Yeah, we're just about, because with every person that you meet for the first time, I think up until, I'm going to say the 10th, because beyond that you're probably taking the mickey a little bit. But yeah, we'll go with the Happy New Year, Nathan. It'd be rude of me not. I'd feel rude not to wish you a Happy New Year.
It would have been
today.
uncomfortable. It would have been uncomfortable.
It would have been,
if
yeah.
I didn't say it.
If I just went, all right.
I've already recorded Golf Weekly with Joe Molloy, so we don't need to go through all this again, Joe.
No, I don't think we do.
Yeah, a rather wonderful start to the golfing year. It is the most wonderful time of the golfing year. Hawaii, like it's bloody grim. The only time I ever imagine if I would be a professional golfer is this week of the year, when I think I would love to play in the Tournament of Champions in Hawaii. It is always 30 degrees. There's not a cloud in the sky. The golf course looks incredible. The best players in the world are there. Like, it is the one time I'm insanely jealous. I think, whatever about Augusta. Yes, I'd love to play Augusta. Yes, I'd love to play the Masters. But this really feels like one of the good perks of the gig, playing in Kapalua this week.
Oh, yeah. Now, I'm insanely jealous the other 51 weeks of the year as well, I must confess. But this is a good one. It's like our sun lamp, isn't it? Golf fans, this comes on the depths of winter. It's on quite late. And it's in the Kapalua? Yeah, Kapalua. And the players treat it as a bit of a holiday as well. They bring their families out. They're all having a good time. There's only 40 of them in the field. They're all getting money. They're all getting paid. It's a dream start to the year for the Tournament of Champions.
It sure is. And it's actually a great field. It used to be the sort of tournament where some lads would rock up and some wouldn't really bother making the trip to Hawaii. But this time it's got 8 of the top 10 in the world. John Rahm's there. Colin McCall was there. So it's actually going to be a brilliant tournament. And Seamus Power is there as well as the Irish representative. Yeah. We were discussing this on the golf podcast today. He might be the most underappreciated Irish sports person at the moment. When you think that on the PGA Tour right now, we have Rory McIlroy, we have Shane Lowry, and then we have Seamus Power.
Yeah, incredibly underappreciated. Totally agree with you. Won on the PGA Tour last season as well. Yes, it was last season. It's hard with the wraparound to keep track. But won on the PGA Tour. He's had 6 top 10s in the last season on, one of the most difficult, certainly the most difficult golf tour in an incredibly difficult and competitive sport. So grossly underappreciated. I think if you were to ask average person, start from number 1 and start listing out Ireland's greatest sports people, I don't think Seamus Power would be in most people's top 100, and he definitely should be.
Absolutely. So that is getting underway soon, but it goes on till about 3 o'clock in the morning. So stay up late, watch it. Imagine you're in Hawaii having a good time. We got a packed show. We're going to talk about Novak Djokovic, and Richie, you can bring us up to date with all the latest. We got Julian Dao on the football show. Richie, Julian Dao, one of the few players who's played for the big 4 Dublin clubs, and I'm including Bowes in that. Played for Pats, Shells, Shamrock Rovers.
Yeah, warmly remembered up in Sligo, of course, as well, and he's made a home up in the Northwest, and has been a constant fixture of LOI TV coverage of Sligo Rovers games and Finn Harps games. Welcome to heaven has almost become his catchphrase when somebody scores a goal. He's a force of nature. He really is. Like, I was watching, the chat was recorded earlier on. I was watching it live, and you can't help but smile I couldn't help but smile watching Julian Dao most of the time, and even when he wasn't playing for Bows, because he's such a pleasure to watch in terms of his ball playing ability, and he kind of almost played in his own world. Like the game happened to be happening ancillary to what was going on in Julian Dao's head, and occasionally those two worlds came together and their two orbits bumped, and something wonderful would happen for the team he was playing for. But he was just his own man, and it was a joy to watch, and is now a joy to listen to. And I can only imagine what it's like being coached by him as well, because he's obviously done some coaching in the last while. What kind of advice he's given to players, and how he transmits that. I'd imagine they come away buzzing pretty much every time they have to deal with him.
We're going to get him on again and talk about the League of Ireland years, because we ended up, Joe, focusing pretty much solely on his time with Cameroon and the African Cup of Nations, and you'd almost forget about the career he had before he came to Ireland. Like, played in the 98 World Cup, played the 3 group stage games for Cameroon, wins 2 African Cup of Nations as part of the Cameroon squad, alongside Samuel Eto'o and all sorts of other hugely talented players, is in the squad again for the 2002 World Cup. Like, he had lived a big life and a big career before he arrived in Ireland, and he's brilliant talking about Samuel Eto'o and how talented Eto'o was. Even before he went to Barcelona, makes the point that actually it was easy for him in Barcelona because it was such a talented squad that in Mallorca was when he carried a team on his shoulders and blitzed everybody. And also talks about the jersey, which, Richie, you're obviously a connoisseur of jerseys.
Yeah. The sleeveless number,
the sleeveless
for
Cameroon
2002,
jersey from 2002,
which was barred by FIFA. FIFA wouldn't allow it, so they had to wear these people remember them playing Ireland in Ibaraki, wasn't it, I think, and they were wearing those undershirts because FIFA for some reason couldn't deal with the sheer power of the Cameroonian bicep.
Could you pull it off, Joe? The sleeveless football jersey?
I'm glad you
Trevor
asked
Giles
first and not me.
Not very well, Nathan. If I say yes to that, I know you'll go out and buy me one and make me do it. So, no, I couldn't. That's amazing. I think I'd underappreciated his career. And did you say they won the African Cup of Nations twice?
Twice. Beat Nigeria, really good Nigeria side of JJ Okacha and Tariba West and Julius Agahoa in 2000 in penalties, and then beat Senegal in 2002, just a few months before Senegal obviously go to the World Cup, and shocked the world. So at a time when African football was really, really strong. And interested as well, actually, very balanced on the conversation around the African Cup of Nations. I was making the point that, like, it must really be frustrating to listen to the way the African Cup of Nations is talked about in this part of the world, which is as a bit of a nuisance, that it's taking players away in the middle of the Premier League season. He's making the point that, well, he can completely understand where the clubs are coming from, and that maybe a lot of the players are even a little bit torn in that, do you want to be away from your club at such an important part of the season? But it's just the way the calendar works right now, and isn't as taken away by the superstars. Sort of feels, when you look back at the African Cup of Nations, that it's built more on the strongest team and the players who can adapt to not playing with the real quality that they're used to week in, week out. Because obviously you look at Mo Salah going back, playing with Egypt, while there are some other players playing in the top leagues, the vast majority of them are playing domestically, so how they deal with that. So we're going to have Jonathan Wilson on tomorrow night's show, actually doing a bit more of an in-depth chat about the different teams that are there. So he's coming up after 9 o'clock. After 8 though, Richie, we're talking Novak Djokovic. You go away for a couple of hours and this seems to take another turn.
Yeah, Novak Djokovic has to wait until Monday to discover if his appeal against a visa cancellation has been successful. Border Force officials last night denied the world number 1 official entry to Australia ahead of this month's Australian Open. Djokovic is staying at the government-approved Park Hotel in Carlton, just in North Melbourne, as he awaits either deportation or formal entry to the country. Officials were unhappy with the documentation accompanying his medical exemption to play at the Australian Open, and Djokovic's mother, Diana, was asked how her son was faring.
As a mother, what can I say? If you are a mother, you can just imagine how can I feel. I feel terrible since yesterday, last 24 hours, that they are keeping him as a prisoner. It's just not fair. It's not human. So I just hope that he will be strong, as we are trying also to be very strong, to give him some energy to keep on going. I hope that he will win. Terrible accommodation. It's just some small immigration hotel, as we can, if it's hotel at all, with some bugs. It's so dirty and the food is so terrible. So, what can I say? They don't want to give him any chance to move on to some better hotel or house that he already rented. But we hope we will manage somehow.
So the Park Hotel is in Carlton in Melbourne, and It is described on its website as a luxurious 4.5-star hotel set in a prime location, 107 rooms, all air conditioned, though it is ranked 105th out of 170 hotels in Melbourne, and Novak Djokovic's mother clearly not impressed with the food. It's all got a little bit farcical over the last 24 hours, Joe, and part of me is starting to feel a bit of sympathy for Djokovic in the sense that he's clearly at the middle of a political tug-of-war, not even a tug-of-war, a very much one-sided, easy punch bag for the Australian political system, that they probably made a mistake initially in allowing him in, and now they're taking every opportunity to humiliate him, but at the same time maybe he deserves it.
Yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, Nadal came out very strongly, and it's rare for Nadal, isn't it? He came out strongly and said, well, it's a pretty clear situation. Get vaccinated, you can play, no problems. If you don't do that, then you're bringing everything on yourself. It was very unusual for Nadal to come out so strongly. I do agree with you. There is politics at play here. Just doing a bit of reading over the last 24 hours, increasingly that is being discussed across the board. The Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, has elections to worry about later this year. He's enjoying saying things like rules are rules and nobody's above the rules. And Australia, cases are surging there at the moment, and that's despite having had 260 plus days of lockdown in Victoria alone. And yet cases are still surging. There's criticism of how the government are handling the situation. There's criticism over a lack of antigen tests, etc. And there's definitely the strong suspicion that this is a fairly neat way to change the conversation in Australia. The only thing anyone's talking about right now is not Scott Morrison and his handling of the pandemic. They are talking about Novak Djokovic. And I'm sure it's polling very well to put the anti-vax multi-millionaire in his place. Like, I saw his deputy, Barnaby Joyce, which is a hell of a name. He was saying things like, rich people can't just wander around the world thinking they're above the law. I mean, I'd say that's polling pretty well, that kind of comment, you know? That aspect is there for sure. I would just say where I do think what seems to have happened here is initially we all thought, well, he got the exemption through two different bodies, Tennis Australia and then the Victorian state. We assumed he'd got the exemption by dint of having had COVID, probably in the last 6 months, which was the rule. And now it turns out Scott Morrison came out and said, well, that is actually not one of the criteria. And he says that we, the government, wrote to Australian tennis officials warning them that this would not be accepted by the Australian Border Force at the airports. And there seems to have been a breakdown there, because I think it's fairly obvious he doesn't have an acute illness. He hasn't reacted very badly to an initial vaccine, given that he probably hasn't had any vaccine. So the only way he was really, it seemed, getting an exemption was to have had COVID in the last 6 months or otherwise. And I think that's where the Australian Border Force said, well, hang on, we're not accepting that, because there's federal government and there's wider government. We're not accepting that. And you knew we weren't accepting that. And I think actually it's now the Djokovic situation has highlighted this little discrepancy in the system, to the extent that a couple of other tennis players who did get through the airport for similar reasons to Djokovic, they're now being investigated. So they're kind of saying, geez, thanks a lot, Novak. You're screwing all of us here now. So that's my best guess as to what happened here, because otherwise I don't understand how he got the exemption from two different bodies, two different boards. Like, they didn't make a mistake. They knew what they were doing, but it seems that the border police had a different interpretation of what allows you in for 14 without the 14-day quarantine. I wonder, by the way, sorry, last one. If he's that desperate to play the tournament and to not get vaccinated, I mean, could he have found a way to do the 14 days quarantining? You know, they did it last year. He won the tournament.
Nobody liked that either, and he didn't want to do that either. And that's one of the reasons Tennis Sangren, the US player, has essentially bypassed this whole thing. He says, I'm not even going to bother with the Australian Open this year, because he didn't want to have to deal with the quarantine or with the paperwork and all that kind of stuff that he'd have to do to actually play in the tournament.
He's not going to win it though. He's not going to win it though. Djokovic could well win. I'm sure he could find a nice spot to quarantine. Didn't they a couple of the high profile guys and Osaka and Serena Williams last year, they managed to quarantine somewhere quite nice and could practice all the time.
But he was whinging about it the whole time. Djokovic was one of the ones whinging about the quarantine situation. And he's not been helped by his own family. Like, we heard his mother there, his father obviously has been speaking on purely through Serbian and has been doing things like comparing what his son is going through to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. which, you know, I wasn't there at the time, but I don't think they're really comparable. Like as Nadal says, and I have the clip here, like it's just sortable by Djokovic just playing by the rules and getting vaccinated, and this whole thing of trying to make a grandstand for what? Like what's he making a grandstand over? Who's this actually impressing? What kind of people is he trying to get on side here? And it's one of the, like, there's a litany of things you could go back through the history of Novak Djokovic and the company that he keeps, which is, you know, worse than what he's doing here. But he's not coming out of this well.
Well, it may also not be the last issue he faces. If you listen to what Emmanuel Macron has been saying in France over the last couple of days, has got him in quite a bit of trouble, where his aim, as he said, is basically to piss off the unvaccinated. You would wonder about the French Open and what the rules will be in France by then. So Djokovic may find himself in this position again very, very soon. In terms of what happens next, Richie, so he's in this hotel until Monday, and there's an appeal at that stage, and then one way or another he'll be allowed to stay or he'll be kicked out?
Yeah, that's it. He's waiting until Monday to find out if this visa application is going to be successful. His lawyer's obviously working on that, and there might be loopholes that effectively allow him to leave the country, come back and try this all over again. But as you mentioned, his longtime rival Rafa Nadal says the 9-time Australian Open champion has no one to blame for this situation but himself.
If he wanted, he will be playing here in Australia without a problem. No, he went through another. He makes his own decisions, and everybody is free to take their own decisions. But then there are some consequences, no. And of course, I don't like the situation that is happening. In some way, I feel sorry for him, but at the same time, he knew the conditions since a lot of months ago, so he makes his own decision.
Yeah, I think Rafa Nadal summed it up. In some ways, I feel sorry for him, but he sort of brought all this on himself. 53106 is the text number. The Newsround brought to you by Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors. It's an FA Cup weekend, Richie, and Manchester City are the latest with some COVID issues ahead of their game tomorrow night.
Fairly sizable ones, but they say they're not planning to ask for tomorrow's third round trip to Swindon to be postponed. Manager Pep Guardiola is one of 21 members of City staff to test positive for the virus, while 7 players will miss out. Assistant coach Rodolfo Borrell, no relation to Johnny, will be in charge of that game at the county ground, and he says they're happy for the game to be played.
We actually have prepared mentally for the game. We have to prepare that for the game to happen, and this is what we've done up until now, and we keep going this way. If then tomorrow, for whatever reason, it's not possible because there are more news, this is out of our reach to know right now. So, but right now, yes, we are prepared to play the game, and we have been preparing the whole days, and mentally we are ready for it.
I feel a Richie McCormack anti-Razorlight rant coming on.
I just thought, like, if ever there's a pro Razorlight rant, I would only ever point people in the direction of Johnny Burrell's speech at, was it Live 8? Where he was doing some mad quote. I'll probably have to bring it up here, but he's like, blah, 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 blah. He's like, sign the pledge. Johnny Burrell said that, or I said that. He was a ridiculous human being, and they're a very poor band. But yeah, that's Rodolfo Borrell, who has no connection, as we believe, to the beleaguered Razorlight frontman that we know of. Yeah, Ed
Woodward, Joe. It's over. It's over for Ed. 1st of February, he is gone from Manchester United. Is that going to be the turning point, do you think? Will the leaks stop the second Ed Woodward departs?
Sorry, I've missed it. What are some of the leaks, by the way? Well, I heard you mention that at the top of the show.
They're all very unhappy. Every day you pick up the paper this week, it's on the back of every single newspaper as to how unhappy the Manchester United players are. Certain players unhappy that the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo are assured of their place in the team no matter what. Players unhappy with the training methods, that the high press isn't working, that they should be spending more time training in possession of the ball than out of the ball, that they don't have the players to do what he wants. He also seems unhappy, Rangnick, with the size of the squad, that it's too big, that he doesn't like having 28, 29 players on the training ground because there's too many of them unhappy. And yeah, it just feels as though every little issue that the Manchester United squad have at the moment finds its way into the papers. It's incredible how quickly it's sort of disintegrating.
There's been an
Yeah,
actual
no, it's
head
ama-
count as well. There's been
amazing.
like 17 players was the number quoted as being unhappy. So there's like somebody going around going, you're unhappy, you're unhappy, you're unhappy. Are you unhappy? And then posting that on to whoever's in the press. It's like, it's laughable. Like, it really, really
Yeah.
is.
I mean, I don't think the leaks will stop when Ed goes on the 1st of February somehow. This Rangnick thing, everything about it smells bad. I think this is a disaster. I think they need to pull the plug in this quickly. Or they need to say to him, yeah, can you make your recommendation now? You know, if you're going to recommend Pochettino in the summer, can you recommend him now? And we're just going to get Pochettino because nothing about this is working. There was a half hour against Crystal Palace where they kind of pressed in a not terrible way considering it's the first game. And since then, it has been an abomination. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're trying to do. They were once an okay counter-attacking team. Solskjaer tried to turn them into a more of a possession team, blew up in his face. Ronaldo arrives. Solskjaer got sucked into this let's press, people say we can't press business. That blew up in their face. And now they brought in Rangnick, the godfather of gegenpressing, and gave him this team who just cannot press and will never be able to press with Ronaldo leading the line. So that is an unholy disaster. And I think a suitable parting shot from Ed Woodward to hand him this mess. He must be the most unpopular executive at a football club ever. And that is saying something. I mean, we could do a top five. We could do a top five of most unpopular. But Woodward's tenure has just been utterly synonymous with bad decision after bad decision and failure after failure, except, of course, when it comes to making lots of money.
Well, as Daniel Taylor has in his piece in The Athletic, some of the things that Ed Woodward has overseen: Newcastle's first win at Old Trafford since 1972, Cardiff's first since 1954, West Brom's first since 1978, Sheffield United since 1973, Burnley since 1962, and Swansea's for the first time in their history. All of those things have happened on Ed Woodward's watch. We're going to be chatting about it actually with Larry Whitwell of The Athletic on the football show as well, and making that point that already about a month into this, it feels that any conversation around Ralph Rangnick staying on in the summer is already over.
Oh, I mean, 4-2-2-2-2-2-2-2. No, thank you.
No. We're pretty much done for time. Richie, just quickly, there's a couple of games on tonight in the Dr. McKenna Cup.
Kingspan Breffni, the venue for tonight's McKenna Cup Section B encounter. Cavan hosting Armagh. Throw-in is at 7:45. However, Ulster Provincial Secretary Brian McAvoy believes the McKenna Cup is under threat. Writing in his annual report, he claims massive changes to the fixture calendar in the coming years could see the competition wiped from the schedule. McAvoy also says the steps rule is no longer fit for purpose in football, and he'd be in favour of a time-based approach. Such a rule was voted down at Congress in 2020, receiving a whopping 9% of the vote.
All right, Joe, thank you as always. Richie, take it easy.
Thanks.
Nice one.
See ya.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's Cash Machine.
So 3 winners in a row with the News Talk Cash Machine, as Mike Evans and Carlo won over €7,000 today. But we have reloaded the machine and there's now €10,297.36 up for grabs. To be a chance to win, text the word play to 57599. Get your entry in by 3 o'clock tomorrow. Then across the Go Loud network of stations, Peter Collins will make that call. If your phone rings, answer it within 5 rings. Tell him the exact amount in euro and cent, and we'll pay all that cash into your bank account. So remember that amount, €10,297.36. Text play to 57599. Over 18s only. Text cost €2.50. Terms and conditions on newstalk.com. John Giles is up next.
The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
Don't get lost.